Hi there, this is Laura with Mom Envy, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make wooden earrings using the xTools M1. I'm going to be using the actual file that I have provided for free within my blog post, which you can grab here at the end of the post. And all you need to do is open up the file that is for the xTools Creative Space program. But if you're using a different type of laser machine or a Cricut or something like that, then you're just going to want to insert the SVG file into whatever program it is that you were using. So the very first thing you're going to want to do when you're making your earrings is to place a piece of basswood onto your base plate, or in my case, I'm going to be placing it onto my honeycomb because I actually have the honeycomb with the risers. As you can see here, here's it on the risers. I put a piece of foil down there at the bottom, which just keeps my base plate clean. But if you don't have a base plate, that's okay. Instead of putting it on the honeycomb like I did here with these clips, you're just going to place yours onto your base plate. And I do suggest that you secure it somehow with something like painter's tape, which will just keep it from moving around when you are cutting. The next step will be to open up your xTools Creative software or whatever software you're using that goes with the machine that you're using.
Go ahead and set up my machine for cutting my wood earrings. I have them selected here, and I'm going to be doing a manual cut because I actually have to, I'm going to end up having to measure this. So for my manual cutting, I'm going to cut at 100% power. I'm going to slow it down to 6% over 6 millimeters per second speed. I'm going to do one pass, and this is because I'm using 1.5 millimeter basswood, which is about 1/16 of an inch basswood. So it's very thin, and I'm doing that on purpose because it is earrings. So I need to go ahead, and my machine is connected. I'm going to click refresh so I can capture the image. And instead of doing laser flat, because I'm using my honeycomb, I'm going to use open plane. And I'm going to ask the machine to measure the distance by clicking the little ruler next to the distance millimeters. That has taken my distance now, so now I'm going to highlight all of this and move it over so it is within my wood. Now, I always do framing before I begin to make sure that everything will fit properly. So what I'm going to do now is click in the bottom right-hand corner where it says framing. Then I'm going to show you what it looks like when I do framing with my video. Doing framing and you have your wood set up, just like when you want to cut, it's going to be glowing on your machine. So I'm going to push the button, and then I'm going to come over here from the side and make sure that the laser clears the board, and it does. Okay, so we are good to go. Okay, since we are good to go, I'm going to click framing completed. I'm going to go ahead and shift these down just slightly because of the metal. It did hit that metal bracket just slightly. And I know that if I move it down just enough, it'll clear it. So I have these, again, they're highlighted, they're all set to cut. My power is 100. I'm going to try a speed 6 and a pass of 1, and we're going to see how it goes. I will show you a small clip of the actual cutting, and then I will show you what it looks like when it's complete. So I'm going to go ahead and click start again. It's showing me just what the design will look like. Then I will go to my machine and show you what it looks like. So I have my wood all set up, as we already saw, and the light is glowing, telling me that it is ready to be pushed to start. I'm going to push the button, and up here it's going to go ahead and start cutting. An updated cut. It's done the first one, and we're going to see if that actually held together. The wood may be a little bit too thin, but we're going to see.
So this is what our finished product looks like. I did realize that I only put one of each earring in the file, so I'm just going to have to go ahead and cut this twice. But I did update the file to include 2 of each earring for all of you. The earrings took about 17 minutes to complete, and I wanted to go ahead and take a few out and show you what the completed products look like. So I'm going to very carefully remove them here. Normally I wouldn't pop them out like this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it just because of trying to make this video for all of you. So as you can see, everything cut really nicely, even these really small delicate lines. I'm a little nervous about the mermaid more so than some of the other ones. And I'm going to go ahead and pop that one out. I actually think I did. It actually did. Yep. Okay, all the lines are there. I do think, though, that I'm going to do some adjusting to the file. As you can see, that top line, hold on, let me see if I can get this to focus a little better. The top right one does need to be thickened a little, so I'll go ahead and fix that for the file that I upload for all of you to try out. And let's check this next one, our little fern leaf or whatever, tropical leaf. And that one, of course, that one is nice thick lines, that one easily cut. Okay, now that I've done my teardrop earrings, I'm going to show you how you can create the stud earrings, which are a little bit different because they're different type of lines. Instead of it just all being cut, there's going to be lines to score and also lines to engrave.
Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and do my small earrings. First, I need to make sure I put in my material. I'm going to do the open plain because I'm finding that it's working better with the honeycomb. But if you do not have the honeycomb, I would suggest just using the laser flat. So I'm going to do open plain. I'm going to make sure I refresh this, and this is up to date. Then over here in the right-hand corner, I'm going to measure my material. For my earring project today, I'm going to be sticking with my 1.5 millimeter plywood because this is what I have on hand. I actually think for the studs, the 3 millimeter would probably be a little bit nicer. But for today, this is what I have, so it's what I'm going to work with. For my engraving and my scoring, I want to have that done first before I do cutting. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have the output turned on. For my engraving settings, I've never done engraving on this size of wood, so we're going to just give it a try. I'm going to do 100 power. I'm going to do a speed of 100 and just one pass. Then for my scoring, I'm going to go ahead and I've already tested this. So I'm going to do power 90% and a speed of 64 and only one pass. Now for my cutting, I actually am going to have that turned off. So for the cutting, I have the setting set as ignore for right now. So that way I make sure that nothing is going to be cut because I don't want anything cutting for right now because then it would possibly not engrave as nicely. Again, I'm set to score, and I am set to engrave. I want to make sure that everything fits okay on my wood, so I'm going to go with framing, and I'm going to show you a video of what that looks like. So framing is what we use to make sure that it fits properly. So I'm going to go ahead, this little light is glowing on the front, I'll push this and come to the side and show you. The laser is going to show where the frame starts and ends, and it definitely fits within, so we'll go ahead and use it as is. Okay, my framing is completed. I'm now going to start my project. So I'm going to click start in the bottom right hand corner, and then I'm going to hit start. As you can see, like the outside of my flower is missing, the cat's head's missing because those are all cuts. So I'll hit start and I'll show you a little bit on my machine, and then I will show you the final product. Okay, so my material is in, my lid is closed, my light is glowing, so we're going to push that, and it will start engraving and scoring. Okay, so step one of the engraving and the scoring is done. It took 21 minutes with my settings, and now I'm going to go ahead and do my cutting. Okay, so now that I've done my scoring and my engraving, it is time for me to set up my cutting. So I'm now going to turn off, I'm going to say ignore for my engraving. So over here on the right hand side, once I click it, I'll say ignore. And I'm going to send it to the back, and this just makes sure I can easily grab my cutting. So now for my cutting, I'm going to select, let me actually first turn off my scoring. Okay, so for my scoring, I'm going to click ignore, and now I can move on to my cutting. Send the engraving back to the back again. Okay, so my cutting, I'm going to select my two.
The reason that you see me arranging my file to the back is so that I can go ahead and select the one that I'm looking for. Because the files are layered on top of each other, it is very difficult within the program to actually click on what you want. So I have to sometimes send, let's say, the cut ones back, so that way I can actually get to the scoring file or the engraving file. So if you can't get to the one and you're getting frustrated because you're like, oh, I can't find the engraving one, just try sending whichever one you can get to the back, and then you'll probably be able to get to the engraving file or the scoring, whichever one you can't seem to get to.
Okay, over here on the right-hand side, it's brought up my menu again, and instead of ignore, now I'm going to click output, and I'm going to click cut. Now, I've already used this material before to cut my other earrings, so I know what works for my settings. So for my settings for my cutting, I'm going to do a power of 100, a speed of 6, and a pass of 1. I don't need to frame this time because I have not moved anything, so I know that it's exactly where it needs to be. So I'm going to click Start. And then this shows you what the cut will look like. Up in the right-hand side, I'm going to click Start again. So everything's still in place. I have not touched anything, and that is that way. It'll cut perfectly now. So where it's glowing, I'm going to push the button. And now it will go ahead and cut. And it's going to cut around what it just engraved. So I'm not going to make you watch this entire thing, but I will show you at the end what it looks like. Okay, so it's all done. It took a little over 4 minutes to cut these.
And this is what the final cut looks like. And here's what the earrings look like when they're cut out. I want to show you a close-up so you can see just how tiny these little guys are. The next thing I did was painting and staining. I used acrylic pens for the little details, and I used acrylic paints for any of the larger sections. For staining the bottom layers of my earrings, I used the baby wipe method. This is where you take some acrylic paint on a baby wipe and you wipe it onto whatever you want to stain, and then you use a clean baby wipe to wipe it off until you get the colored that you want. So you can see here, the top one I didn't wipe as much, so it's darker, and then the bottom one I wiped more until it was a lighter color because that's the desired color I was going for. Once my earrings were dry, I applied a light clear coat that was non-yellowing in a spray format, but you could also use Mod Podge instead. Okay, so I'm going to assemble my wood earrings. I accidentally did not end up videoing my painting it, but I did get some still shots. I used acrylic markers just to paint all of these. And then for some of my larger bases like this blue, instead of using them, actually I used the marker for this one, but for this one I just used acrylic paint because I wanted a little bit more of a jewel tone. So I am going to just use some spray adhesive, which is honestly super sticky. So it is, the one that I'm using is just this 3M Super 77. And that's going to be the easiest way for me to adhere something so delicate onto my larger bases. And I'm going to use it for all of my different ones. Now, if you would rather, you could have it so that these actually aren't attached and they're just free floating. But because these are so thin, I actually am going to glue it onto here because I don't want to have them breaking as the two pieces of wood rub together. But it's up to you what kind of look you want to go for. Okay, so first up are these wave ones. So I'm just going to flip them upside down. I'm actually going to make sure these are nowhere near the glue. And I'm just going to spray these very lightly. And then we're going to position them. onto the base, and I'm just going to press and hold, and I'm actually going to get them both on, and then I'll press and hold them since I sprayed them at the same time. Next time I would wait and actually just spray one at a time. But we're going to just do that, and then we'll press and hold. And that's all we need for a super strong hold. And then I'm going to place these over to the side where they can dry. So here are our final designs. They are going to dry and make sure that they are completely adhere, and then I will show you how we're going to assemble them. Once the clear coat was dry, I went ahead and glued the studs on the back of my earrings. This was really easy. I just used a clear Gorilla Glue. I applied a very tiny bit onto the metal stud, and then I pressed it onto the backs of my earrings, and then once they were dry, they were ready to wear. So now that my glue has dried on all of my earrings, I'm going to show you how I assemble them. I already went ahead and assembled my stud earrings. All I did was take metal studs that look like this, and I applied a little bit of this Gorilla all-purpose heavy-duty glue, and then I took it and I pressed it onto the back of my wooden earrings, and it worked really well. It's got a nice tight hold. As you can see, here's an example. Here's my egg and toast earrings that are already painted and dried, and their studs are already on. Here's my flower earrings. I have ones that I didn't paint, my sloth and my silky fuzzy chicken, but they all have their studs on the back. But these ones are a little bit more complicated. We need to put on some rings to be able to hang them. I will show you what not to do, which is, here's the first example of, this does not work. We have to use two to be able to put these earrings, because otherwise these earrings are going to hang crooked. We need it to go this way. So we're going to need two of these little loops, and then one of our actual earring. I'm going to open up both of these to start, because it's easier if I start with them both open. So you're going to just use some pliers to open them up. And they do have to open enough that they can, the first one of them has to open enough that it can get into this hole. But the second one just has to open up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to take this first one and see if I open it up enough to loop it through. Okay, once that goes through, we're going to go ahead and close it. Just by using the pliers, we're going to clamp them back together. After that, we're going to take our second loop and we're going to put it through the first one. And this is why I just find it's easier to already have it open, because then I don't have to fight it again. So we're going to stick it through. So we put on our second loop, and now we're going to take this, and we want to make sure that it's hanging correctly before we put it on. So this is going to go this way. We need this to go this direction. So I'm going to slip it in, and then I'm going to take my pliers and just clamp this closed. So this is what my completed earring looks like.